So this is about the joint green garden organic service with Cessnock, Singleton and Maitland councils. As you can see, that little banner on the bottom there is what we started with as we worked along, basically. And it's good to see my counterparts and managers up the back there. Thank you for supporting this. I haven't seen all day. This little journey started back in 2014 at Cessnock Council when we did our waste strategy. We actually hired Mike Ritchie and Associates to help us write that thing. And when we presented it to Council and asked them to adopt it, they put a third recommendation into our Council report with it in that process, saying that they'd like us to implement this garden organic service in 3 years' time. We went, oh, we were just having high, medium, low on the timeframes. 3 years' time, you know, thanks guys. But that's what we got with and that's what we had to start doing. We're also starting to get, of course, a lot of community requests. Our neighbours in Lake Macquarie and Newcastle already had this service, and across the border they were going, why can't we have it too? Sort of things. And so we had to sort of get out there and start knocking on some doors. And so the most obvious thing for us was to talk to Singleton and Maitland, our neighbours, as they also didn't have this service, but they also were our partners in the recycling collection. So we already had a bit of a history with them, and so we had a bit of a relationship to work in. We all had our little differences though, we weren't all exactly the same, and we needed to try and incorporate that into the service that we were trying to provide. You can see the geographical differences between our councils and what was going on, and also the service differences. So in Cessnock, we cover 2,000 square kilometres. We only provide a domestic waste collection service to about 85% of the local government area. After that, they're just too far spread out in the bush to make it economically viable for everyone. Also, we made the decision that we wouldn't provide garden organics to commercial properties or services to begin with. We do that on a case-by-case assessment once it's started. At Maitland, much a smaller local government area, but that's where all the services were. They were the ones who are going to make this economically viable for all of us. They've got 50% of the services over 400 square kilometres. And they service the whole LGA, and they were also, like us, were going to wait on the commercial until we rolled it out and do an assessment basis for that. Singleton Council by far have the biggest geographical range to cover and the smallest number of services. And for them, they have a bit of a split. They've got an urban service and a rural service. The urban was made compulsory, and the rural service was an opt-in. So we've had a few issues with that we've worked out over the last year. In all though, we all agreed when we came together that we'd keep our 240 litre size waste bin. We had a plan coming. We knew that food would come in eventually and we'd go fortnightly on the waste. Most of our garbage bins were still in really good condition. Why waste that resource? So we kept the 240 litre bins. It wasn't all smooth sailing. We didn't get our first grant from the EPA, our application to pay for the green bins. That was knocked back. And also we went out to tender the first time with everything. Collection, processing, education, all in one giant tender with 50,000 questions. And I think actually we also included a curb bulk side service of bulky good waste as well. So we just messed everything up by trying to do everything at once. And of course we didn't get a single complying contract tender issued for that. And so we had to go back and talk about and think about that again. But getting back on track, we went out there and finally got the processor first. We decided we'd get the processor. If we know where the green waste is going, we can then tell the collector where they have to take this stuff. So we quickly got moving again, and by June in 2016, everyone was appointed, and we had a start date of the 6th of March 2017, which was 9 months from where we originally wanted to be in kicking it off. So we were less than a year behind our plan at that stage. So 13 months down the line, we're starting to gather some good data. It's interesting, we could only really tell the contractors to begin with what we knew was in the bins, but we knew from when everyone else does this that you get more garden organics when you give everyone a bin just for that. Myself, I know we never used to put lawn clippings in the bin, My husband just loves it now. He just can't wait for that week to do it. Does it all the time. It's also been interesting to note, though, our contamination rates. They've been consistently low. And I think as Leanne goes through the very detailed education process that we went to as we rolled this out and we continue to do now, it'll come across. But we're also noticing that in times when there's less garden organics, so in wintertime and summertime when things aren't growing because it's too cold or too hot, our contamination rate is going up compared to our collection rate. And then as soon as we've got growing again, so we had rain in February, March, and the grass just went berserk because it stayed hot through March and April, and those tonnes were up again for us, the contamination rate went down. So what we're noticing with all the bins is as soon as somebody has got capacity in a green waste bin, and most likely the recycling bin that's not being used, they start tossing anything in it they can. We have actually noticed, though, we did bin audits 6 months before the service commenced and 6 months after. So that was October 16 and 17. We can see that in total, the contents of our bins, our total weights come down, and our green waste content has come down. The food is starting to grow a bit more, though, when you look at it in percentage terms. So it's something that will come. At year 7 at the latest, we'll be putting food in. But if we can have the processing facility ready to take food sooner, we will go sooner. And our curbside diversion rates have all consistently increased. So we're feeling quite optimistic that we're achieving the goals that we set for ourselves at this time. And we seem to be keeping to move forward. Now Leanne's going to take over and talk about all the communications that got us to this point.
Okay. I'll just press this one.
Yeah.
Hi, my name's Leanne Sanderson. I'm the Education Officer with Solo Resource Recovery, employed to do the education for this contract. I'm very lucky because I came into it after Jodie at Ritchie's had done a great job at setting up the education plan, and I work with a fantastic team at Singleton, Maitland and Cessnock. Now we conducted a multifaceted communication and awareness campaign to ensure the success of the service. Our objectives were to maximise the numbers of residents reached, establish a high level of community awareness about how to use the service, and community participation in using it. We also wanted to minimise contamination. It was a very high priority for us to enhance the quality of the compost that we were getting as final product and to increase resource recovery and diversion from landfill. Our key messages were we're working together, the councils are working together. Using the Go bin is easy and makes a big difference, and we really like to push that the organics are processed into a quality compost used by farmers and home gardeners. And also, there was the benefits, it's easy to use, and contamination seriously affects the quality of the compost that's produced. We wanted to create a connection with the community and went with the theme Your Garden Organics and developed a concept branding using local volunteers. This included the development of our dedicated Your Organics website, and all messaging directs back to the website. We also had a 1800 number for a hotline. Promotion of the new service started in 2016, and with the direct mail out of the Mayor's letter. Now this was really successful. Whenever I've had interactions with members of the public, they always go, yes, well, I got the Mayor's letter. It was always referred to as the Mayor's letter. Now with the direct mail out, the hardest thing is getting it from the letterbox and someone to read it. The percentage of stuff that just goes straight into the bin. So I think one of the most successful things about this, the delivery of this, was the design of the envelope. So the message was there straight away, and it's important, and it's got all the council logos on it, so we got a really high uptake in it. We used flyers. Oh yes, we used newspaper ads, flyers, bus backs, radio ads, banners, Main Street flags, posters and signage, and social media messaging. We had a multifaceted communication program. We also did pop-up information stands in shopping centres, used digital messaging in the libraries and council facilities, and on-hold messaging. Pretty well 101 how to roll out a service. To ensure consistency of messaging, we also had a frequently asked question sheets. We did councillor briefings and customer service briefings so that we had consistency in the responses to community inquiries. I went door to door and talked to the real estate agents, and we encouraged them we explained to them what was going to happen with the rollout, and specifically with the MUDs, and encouraged them to send out digitally to all their tenants information about the rollout and how to use the bins. What we did with the rollout with the MUDs, the multi-unit developments, we decided to deliver all bins to all properties that had a domestic waste service, and then deal with the withdrawal of service after that. Because sometimes with a new service, it's something new, I've got by without it before, I don't have space, I don't need it, I don't want your bin. So we decided the best way to handle that was we went straight out and said, no, this is part of the service, there's no additional cost by having this bin, and there's no reduction in your rates by surrendering the bin. You can surrender it, but later on down the track, if you change your mind, or when we go into food organics, then you might need to pay for your bin. So why don't you just keep it and have a go, and we'll look at retrieving it later. We had very minimal requests to return it, and people who really demanded strongly, no, you must take my bin, then rang up quite meekly and said, oh, actually, do you mind if I change my mind? One of the issues was with commercials. Some of the commercials, we had some issues with it. They wanted to be surrendered, but, that's okay. I would have recommended, I understand why it was done, because you've got small numbers and you need to get as many bins out there and as many services as possible. But maybe giving the option with commercials and Department of Housing as well, the option of whether they wanted to have the bin. With the Department of Housing, we also spoke to Department of Housing and what did they want to do and how did they want to use it, especially with the MUDs. They said yes, a lot of them said yes, these are the numbers, it's a person in an office a long way away from the development. They said yes, this is the numbers we're going to use, and just deliver 2 bins and they will share them. Yes, well, they don't usually share very well. And when you share, then there's no responsibility for contamination. The moment there's contamination in the bin, it is never mine, I didn't put it there. And contamination is a really big issue for us. We really like to control that. So anyway, that's where we went with that one. So there's our bus backs and our street flags in Singleton. The bins were all delivered with a how to use sticker on the lid and a household information brochure. So that gave them all the information about how it was processed, what could go in, what can't go in, why it was introduced, and the benefits environmentally and to the community overall. We also had social media posts. We also used tape attached across the top of the bin because it took 6 weeks for us to roll out across such a large geographic area. People were very enthusiastic. So they've got my bin and the bin service is not going to start for 6 weeks, but I've got a lot of grass because it's summer. We actually rolled this out when it was 40 degrees. I don't know how the guys did it. They deserved the Heroes Award. So we used tape across the bin to say service commences on the 6th of March and information about please don't start filling it until 2 weeks beforehand. Some people did that, but we had a lot of issues with people who were so excited and they had managed to get 6 weeks of grass that would just sit there and compress and compact. And but anyway, our drivers dealt with it. We had social media posts keeping residents advised of how the rollout was going and when they could be expecting their bin. We were directing residents back to the website for further information, and we have a search engine on the website where you can put in your address and it's on the home page, so it's very easy to navigate, and then you can find out when your next collection day is. That's an ongoing process. You can also work out when your next recycling bin. For some of our residents, surprisingly, they weren't sure what the cycle was. They thought that maybe they would put them all out at the same time. So we had to really educate that it was an alternate service, and this week is recycling and this week is the green bin. There's our website, you should go to it, it's pretty good. Okay, so we had first day collections, we had social media posts. Oh, actually, I forgot to say, as part of our education rollout, we did also the media launch, and we got lots of radio interviews and a lot of uptake with the local papers. The mayors were there, and it was a wonderful event. Everyone had a great time. Okay, sorry. So yes, and so then we were doing posts, social media posts about how the rollout was proceeding and the first day collections. There's Mike Alexander down there, very proud. The first load being delivered, yes. Okay, so post-commencement, we continued our education. We went with radio ads, 6 months, not radio ads, we did newspaper placements at the 6 months to commemorate and do a report card, 6,000 tonnes in the first 6 months, and encouraging people because we were having issues with overweight bins. So we were encouraging residents to take up there was the option of a second bin, and a few tips about leaving the bin ajar, the lid ajar, to cope with moisture build-up. We did community events. So we did a lot of community events where we're just standing there, flying the flag, telling people all about the service, promoting the capabilities of the trucks with the cameras, types of material, the common misconceptions, man-made timber, the melamine treated timber. There's residents struggle with that one. We actually started with untreated timber on our promotion on accepted materials, and we ended up taking that off. Of course, we do accept it, but we're not going to promote it because there's too much confusion. And when you get a grey area, that's when you start to get all the problems. So if you can keep it black and white and very clear, then it keeps for a positive response. Here's some of our community activities. Oh, and so once we were there, we started doing with ANL. We're very happy and very keen to support us to give out compost. And this has been very, very successful. It's been one of our most successful ventures. We get opportunities to have face-to-face interactions with residents because, as we've heard, everyone knows how to do the right thing with the bin. I truly believe that everyone just knows how to do it, so all of that messaging about how to use whatever bin it is doesn't apply to me because I know. So when you get, and I'll talk about that. So with this one, we had an opportunity to talk to people about why it was important to put the right things in the bin, that it was being used, it was a closed loop, it wasn't just going to sit in a hole or go somewhere. Here it is, it's coming back to you. And that's our promotional bag. So it's your organic soil conditioner, and it's got all of our branding on it. And it goes very, very quickly. We had an event the other day, we gave out 132 50-litre bags in 2 hours, and we had to knock people back. So now, the contamination management. It's contamination management, but I really see this as education. This is targeted education because everyone does the right thing, or they think no one really cares what happens. So with this one, we've got the trucks. The trucks have hopper cameras, and we can see what is going in the bin. The drivers can see it. We have fantastic drivers, and they really support us and back us up with this. So we get the hopper cameras through FleetMax. I go through the drivers, record the contamination, and I go through that personally and check what the contamination looked like. I keep a record of that photo against the property. I keep a record of all the properties that have had contamination, and if it's severe contamination, or repeated more than two in 6 months, then I send them out a letter. First off, the driver will always tag the bin, so if he records contamination, he will tag the bin, keeps the bin details, the bin number and everything, so we can have all of that data, and then I can send them out a letter. This is just to say, look, you know, this is what we saw, but I send this letter with the photo of what we found in the bin and information to say this is what can and this is what can't go in the bin. I don't get a lot of responses saying, no, that wasn't mine. So, and we have very, very minimal repeats once they've received the letter. And if we tread slowly. From the beginning, we had the honeymoon period, but as we've got into it, and then you find that the contamination started to go up, so we were a little bit stricter on it. So that's where the letter came in. And we also have done the education video. Now, so back with the contamination, so with the letters, we started to get stricter, and we started to suspend services because we don't see the contamination until the contamination is in. And you can have bin loads and you can have large amounts of contamination. So I see this as targeted education. We suspend the service, but it's only suspended and it says, please give us a call so we can talk to you about it, and you can show us that you understand what goes in it, you agree to do it, and services will start straight away. If I have a suspended service and I haven't heard from them for a while, we want them to use the bin. So I actually go out and do a door knock and sort of go, hi, is there a problem? And you'd be surprised the number of times I don't have to do that many door knocks. But when I do, there's often an underlying factor. Someone had 3 kids that moved from domestic violence, had four kids under 5, they're in the nappies, the car's broken down, the recycling bin's full and it's tagged, the green bin's starting to overflow, the red bin's starting to overflow, she can't get to the dump, no one's emptying her bins because they're contaminated, and what do? And the kids are crying. And so then you can actually talk to council and you can get processes and you can find solutions for those people, and it makes you feel really good, and they say thank you, and it's quite rewarding. So we've also done a video. Part of our education is with the first anniversary. Singleton got right into the first anniversary and did bus back advertising and promoting the service. We also have released 4 videos just to give the story of the whole process from the beginning to end. It was recommended that we would go with 4 short ones because apparently no one can watch a long video anymore. So you've only got a 2 minutes concentration, and so that way you could go to each part of the story. So can I go down to number 3, Thorin? Just play that. So these are our 3 stories. This is one that just covers contamination, sort of outlines what we're doing.
Every fortnight, the Solo Resource Recovery trucks empty the garden organics bins from the curbside. Each truck can empty around 600 bins or 9.5 tonnes before needing to unload, and can do up to 3 runs a day. The trucks are fitted with a tracking system that automatically records the time and address of bins as they're emptied. They also record bins not out for collection and details of non-compliant bins that are too heavy, over full or contaminated. The trucks are also equipped with cameras which allow the driver to see everything in the bins as they're being emptied. A photographic record is kept of any contamination with address details for future reference. A non-compliance sticker is attached to bins identified as contaminated as a first warning to inform the resident of the issue and options to resolve the problem. Households with a history of severe or repeated contamination will be contacted by letter and have their bins inspected prior to collection to avoid future problems. However, ongoing incidents may result in the service being suspended until an agreement has been provided to use it correctly. But there's no need to worry. We're here to solve problems rather than make them. And we've made sure there's plenty of information to make it easy for you to use the Go bin correctly as we work together to wage our own war on waste.
And after being to the Tim Hill's social media workshop the other day, I have lots of ideas about driving traffic to my to the videos. So, where do we go from there? Okay. So, where do we go from here? We've got ongoing education. We're continuing with the compost giveaways. The compost giveaways we used to promote the anniversary of the first service, and we're continuing to do that. We feel with Lake Macquarie, it's a neighbouring council, are going into FOGO, so they're the first council in the area that's going into FOGO in July. So their mass media communication program is going out in June. So we are concerned about a bit of overlap because they're using the compostable bags. All of our messaging says no bags, and we don't want food in the bin yet. This wouldn't be so much of a problem. So we're going to go, at the moment we're going with bus backs to run simultaneously with the mass media messaging, because the TV ads, which happens in rural and regional areas, the TV and some of the media, the newspaper and radio will actually come and overlap into our area. We're planning for introduction of food in as soon as possible. and so, yes, it's all good. But I think that the most wonderful thing that we're doing is the targeted education, and also the compost giveaways. They're really popular. They show that it's a good news story for council, it's a good news story for waste recovery, and it gives you that opportunity to have that one-on-one interaction with people, and then they really start to talk about it. So, that's us. Wait a second. Oh, wrong way. That's us. So, I think one of the positives about our whole contract is councils working together collaboratively, so you get the benefits of the economies of scale to the advantage of your ratepayers without the tensions of an amalgamation, so everyone can keep their unique personalities and way of doing it. We've managed to cater for individual differences. Because I'm a neutral, I have the best interests of all councils at all times. So it helps to give us a balance. And yes, I would recommend it to anyone. We're looking forward to going into FOGO. Thank you.